Hello. According to a piece of research I came across, there are three basic reasons so many of us fail to achieve the goals that are important to us. The first reason is we don't know how. The second reason is we know how, but there's something that stands in the way. So it's not possible for us to move beyond this particular obstacle. The third reason is the most surprising of them all. The reason we don't achieve what we're saying is important to us is because we don't want to. Now, that's kind of something surprising. How can you not want to achieve that which you're saying is important to you? But what's important that we're going to cover in episode 2 are the 5 challenges that we're going to put you through to help you solve those problems once and for all, like the money problem specifically we're talking about. This video is primarily about how to rewrite your money story, and you start rewriting your money story by beginning with the belief barriers. I'll explain in a minute what that means and how you go about doing that. Let me quickly go through the main reasons we struggle financially. The first one is that life is controlled by principles. We choose the actions and principles determine the outcome. So the smart thing is to find out what applicable principles are and align your actions with those principles. The second reason is you become what you believe. Some people tell you that you become what you think about, but that's not really the case. You become what you believe. This is important because your thoughts come from your beliefs. So the root is actually your set of beliefs. So your actions are the practical expressions of your beliefs. Now, this belief action spiral is very important because it shows how beliefs are linked with actions. The third reason is so many of us are struggling financially because we don't have any money trees. What are money trees? Money trees are assets that either generate cash flow or appreciate in value. So we don't have any of those. That's part of the reason that we're struggling. Now, what this video is primarily about is to explain these 5 challenges that we separately, like in a separate session, are going to walk you through to help you turn things around financially. Now, they are based on what we have called the BLESIM model. The BLESIM model is that line which you see at the bottom there: beliefs and mindset, learn, earn, save, invest, and manage wisely. Now you see how the whole belief action spiral still comes through. And you are your worst enemy. You are your biggest enemy. Now, this here is a metaphor that explains when you look at this thing through the metaphor of a tree or of a plant, it's so much easier to understand that the root system is a set of beliefs, and the things that we want, the fruit, are dependent on the root system. If you have an apple root system, you are likely to get the fruit of banana. So you have to make sure that those two are aligned. Now, your money is not all yours. So you're going to have to share it with the tax man. Those many people are going to be charging you fees, and inflation is always there. Now we're coming back to this slide again, and we're saying the 5 challenges are: number 1, the money slave to money master challenge. What this means is so many of us are controlled by money. I mean, we go to work, we do work that we hate, but while we're doing it, we're doing it because we want to earn income. The right way of doing things is we go to work at the beginning of a career in their 20s. We need to be saving and investing that money. Later on, we have those money trees I spoke about earlier, and with the money trees contributing to our income and our net worth, etc., then we are in a better position to say, no, I can't stay working here because this is not consistent with who I am, the goals that I want, etc., etc. In that way, you take control. Instead of money becoming your master, you become to master the money. This is how it's supposed to be. It's not as complicated as you might think it is. Second one is generate a surplus, the safety net challenge. We'll explain all this in a minute. Now, there are 2 primary metaphors that we use throughout our conversation. The first one is a garden metaphor. You are the gardener, you have a garden, your financial garden, and you need to make this garden look good. The second one, it's an aviation metaphor. Now, I'll explain that when we get to it, because it might intimidate some people. But we're not going to get into like any complicated aviation principles. So the first one is using the garden metaphor. Financial freedom comes when you have an orchard of money trees, right? You have all these many assets that are generating income, that are that are appreciating in value. If at any point you decide, no, I need a lump sum, you can just go liquidate those assets, you sell them, and you get the money. Then you can do something else that you feel is better use of your resources and money. Now, the two biggest enemies you face every day. The first one is something called entropy. What is entropy? Entropy can simply be defined as disorder happens effortlessly. So this room has a high level of entropy because there's a lot of disorder. A garden doesn't become immaculate all by itself. A room does not become immaculate all by itself. It's very easy for it to become like we're looking at it here. So the biggest enemy is fear. Now, what is fear? Fear is an emotional response to a perceived threat. Okay, there's legitimate fear, and there's fear that maybe it's not legitimate. We can debate that. I have read a lot of books in my life, and this book by Dr. Steve Peters is one of the best books that I recommend to people on a regular basis. So the top books for me would be obviously the Bible, and this book is number two. So the way the mind works, there are a lot of texts that explain this, and obviously it's very complex, but this book explains it in a very simple and very practical manner where you can do something about it. So I highly recommend that you get yourself a copy of this book. You will not be disappointed. So essentially, he's saying the mind has three critical areas, right? Let's call the first one the chimp brain, the second one the human brain, the third one the computer. So we're just going to call it chimp and human and computer. So how each makes decisions. Now the chimp, it's about survival. It's that reptilian brain you hear about. So it focuses on instincts. There's a flight, there's the fight, there's freeze, and there's fawn. Fawn is about appeasing. When you're in a difficult situation, you appease the potential aggressor, and hopefully they may let you go. You see this a lot in the corporate environment. The second one is drive speed. And also the chimp looks at things in terms of um, black and white, but it's very good in interpreting body language. Doesn't always get it right, but it's a master of that. So the human is about fitting into society, and the focus is about sense of purpose. It's about self-control. It's about doing things that are right. It, the human cares about right and wrong, and the computer tracks everything that you've done. Whatever you've been doing since you were born up to now, it's stored in the computer. When this set of circumstances arises, or this set of circumstances, the computer will know how things were solved in the past, and it'll generate that automatic response. Okay, so it records experiences so that it can speed up future responses. Now, in terms of how they work, the chimp typically it's faster than the human. But the computer is faster because it already has everything stored. The chimp uses feelings and impressions, and it jumps to conclusions. Again, it's about life or death, and that's how it is. There are no gray areas. You look at a situation. Let me make a practical example. You walk into a room and everybody's nicely dressed. Suddenly you see somebody. Oh, this somebody is a threat to you in one way or another, psychologically, obviously. And your chimp automatically doesn't like that person. Oh, that one dressed so nicely. That's the competition. Let's go eliminate the competition. You know what I'm saying? That's how the chimp thinks, black or white, life or death. And the human, again, it's about fitting society. The human will say, no, let's not rush to conclusions. Let's evaluate the facts. What is the truth of the situation? Let's look at the evidence. And the human understands life is not just about, black or white. There are gray areas in between. So which autopilot scripts do not serve you? That's really what this course is all about. Okay. Remember, the stimulus comes to the chimp, and if there's a threat, the chimp automatically generates a response. But if there's no threat, the chimp takes it easy and then says, human, you generate what do we do in a situation like this? Now, stress arises when there's conflict between the two. Okay. When the chimp is uneasy about the situation and you're not doing anything, then that's what will generate stress in your life. So are your autopilot decisions serving you? Obviously, some do, others don't. Now, which ones, when it comes to money, are actually hurting you? And you'll see that a lot of this comes down to your set of beliefs. This is the thing about your chimp. Your chimp is your chimp. It's not bad or it's not good. It is your chimp. It has helped you to get to the point where you are today. But when it comes to finances and some other decisions in terms of relationships, etc., you have to understand your chimp and know that some of the responses it generates based on what's stored in the computer aren't going to serve you. So you have to identify what those ones are and do something about the situation. Because all the chimp wants is it wants everything now. It wants comfort and it's instant gratification. That's how it is because it thinks it's in the wild, but it's the job that it's designed to do. So the chimp and the human have to work together. So if you leave your chimp unchecked, you allow it to do whatever it wants, it'll do all these nasty things that will make it difficult for you to fit in society. Okay, you will have nothing for tomorrow. You'll be fighting with everybody all the time. You'll be doing all those things. We spoke about those drives and we spoke about those instincts. Okay, so the human role is to learn to exercise the chimp, to lead the chimp in the direction of doing things that are good for you, like for both of you, because both of you constitute you. Okay, it's you, and I'm saying you, I'm in the human part, and the chimp, and obviously the computer. Now, this is the first challenge. Okay, the money slave to money master challenge. Now, let's look at this thing and understand. As a conductor, you have these musicians here who are good at what they do. Your role is to guide them throughout that process of that song so that you blend them appropriately to generate a great product. That's your job. So we're going to challenge you to take control, to wrestle control back primarily from the chimp because it's going to keep executing the old scripts, right? Take control of your financial aircraft. The enemy is going to be your set of maladaptive beliefs, right? Dysfunctional beliefs. They served you at a point in time, but perhaps they don't serve you now. They're not consistent with you achieving financial freedom. And so the set of actions that we're going to challenge you to take, number one is identify those types of beliefs, deconstruct them, and reconstitute them, like construct them differently. In science, there's something called Occam's razor. Occam's razor is all things being equal, the simplest explanation is the best one. So we taking that approach. So what is a belief? Is anything you hold to be true that influences your thoughts, feelings, and actions. Remember, you hold it to be true. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true, but you think it is true. Okay. And so in what we're going to be doing, we're going to be basically deconstructing it and say, all right, when it comes to belief, you have a trigger, you have your interpretation of the situation, you have the truth. Is that which you think is the truth really the truth, or is it a lie? So this is where we're going to focus. And then is the expectation and is the action. The primary wealth building drivers, it's yourself, it's time, and assets. Do you have any assets that are productive assets specifically that are growing, appreciating in value, or generating cash flow? Time's superpower, by the way, is to multiply whatever you give it. If you give it good assets, it'll multiply them. You'll have so much more. If you give it lousy assets like big screen TVs and expensive cars, and you don't have anywhere to stay, it'll multiply them. You'll end up with a whole host of expenses. But the key driver in the process is yourself. That's why it's so important to focus on yourself first, because if you don't fix you as the pilot of the financial aircraft, so to speak, not much is going to change. There are people who have great assets, but they're abusing them so badly. Okay, so number two is generate a surplus, the safety net challenge. So the objective here is to source good seeds. Remember the garden metaphor? Good seeds, and the enemy is short-term thinking, right? Consumption, consumption, consumption. Remember the chimp? The chimp, when it sees something it likes, it wants it all and it wants it now. And so what we're going to be challenging you is to spend less than you earn, because that's ultimately how you're going to improve your financial situation. Now, the model that we're going to be using here is what we call financial flight dynamics. Now, you don't have to understand the concept of lift and drag and stuff. I'll explain it in a minute. So an aircraft flies because thrust comes from the engine. Thrust is power that comes from the engines, and it propels the aircraft forward, as you would imagine. And in financial terms, that is equivalent to income. Now, drag is just another word for friction, right? So drag is what pulls the aircraft in the opposite direction. It makes it harder for it to move forward. As an example, if you take someone like Usain Bolt, he runs at, like, I think it's 9.58, the fastest record that he has. But if you put him in water, he's not going to be able to run anywhere close to that, because the resistance in water is going to be so much more than on air, right? So that's what drag is about. It's about the liabilities that are making it difficult for you to move forward. And on the opposite side, and the thing, by the way, though, is principles work in pairs. You have one that goes this way and the opposite, and you have to manage them appropriately. So lift, it's, like when you blow into a balloon and let it go, it goes up. Lift, it's that force that makes things go up. Now, we don't have to get into the technicalities of how it happens, configuration of the wings and airflow and that kind of stuff. All we're saying is lift is equivalent to cash flow. You may have assets. Let's say you have life policy and endowment policy. These policies are going to run maybe like for the next 10 years or something. You have assets, but technically those assets aren't available to you because you don't have the money from those assets that you can use. So the cash flow is about the money that's available that you can use at any given time. And so the opposite of lift is weight. That's gravity, right? The heavier the object, the more gravity is going to be pulling it down, right? So it's lifestyle choices. So many are struggling because of the lifestyle choices that we have made. You find somebody life is going well, and then something happens, life becomes difficult. They still want to hang on to the lifestyle that they cannot afford anymore. And so when we're dealing with these challenges, this part about lifestyle changes is the part that is most difficult for people to come to grips with. I mean, intellectually they get it, but emotionally it's so much harder for them to choose to downgrade. Now, the third challenge is investment basics. And the enemy here is lack of intentionality. In other words, you don't make a decision. All the people who achieve great things in life made a decision at some point that I'm gonna go, because the journey is not always going to be easy. I'll show you in a minute what you're gonna go through. So the action is plan today for a harvest tomorrow. So we're saying money management is a game, right? And number two is you have to master the basics. And number three, your objective is to actually move up the pyramid. The fundamental reason so many of us struggle with money, we're living paycheck to paycheck, is because we're not operating in that third level, that third layer, which is about accumulating assets. Because those are the assets, the money trees that make it easier for us to have breathing room later on in life. So number four is unlock new streams, the income growth challenge. The objective is to diversify your garden. If you have a garden full of apple trees and there's some sort of sickness that decimates apples, you're in deep trouble. But if you have apples, you have bananas, you have mangoes, etc., it becomes so much easier. The enemy is the imposter syndrome. What is the imposter syndrome? It's essentially fear. You had people at the top of the game saying, sometimes I wonder, it's really me doing this. Or maybe people will discover tomorrow that I'm a fraud. It's like we don't believe that we can excel. So the imposter syndrome is like, maybe I'm not as good as I am showing everybody that I am. So, but again, it's the chimp there, because the chimp doesn't want to be embarrassed and that kind of stuff. So the action that we're going to be challenging you to take is have faith in principles and processes. Remember, life is controlled by principles. So when you understand the principles that are involved, you just have to make sure that you follow the processes that are specified by the principles. If you build a bridge based on the right engineering principles, that bridge will stand. So challenge number five is manage wisely, build a legacy challenge. The objective is preserve for future generation. Now the enemy there says shallow roots. What does that mean? So here you have the matriarch of the family, or the patriarch of the family, who started this whole, this empire. Maybe small, but what happens is he or she has to make sure that she teaches the next generation, so that when she dies, the children who are the next generation know what to do. And they don't only live off what she has built, but they continue to grow it. And the children have to make sure that they teach the next generation. That's what shallow roots is about. So when they continue to teach, they're making sure that roots begin to spread and they become and remain strong. So the action here is about systems, and it's about giving people the opportunity to do things, because sometimes we don't give our children the opportunity that they need to be show them concepts, but we don't actually let them do it while we're still there, so we can become a safety net for them. Now, what TMT arbitrage says is, as soon as possible, let's use the time that we have in our 20s, when we don't, in most cases, don't have the money, and we and the money, and then we continually save and invest that money, and we actually buy productive assets. So the first T stands for time, that M stands for money, and the second T also stands for time. So we use the time to earn money, and we use some of the money to buy productive assets. The productive assets are going to free us up of some of the things. For example, I have built this business. I get to a point where I stop doing presentations because I hate them. I hire somebody to do them, and they free me so I can begin or continue to do something a lot more productive. That's really what we're saying. So it's about, you earn more and you live better, but it's not a straight line. We call this the financial adventure curve. Now, this is not just about finances. You find this in relationships. You find this particularly in storytelling. Now, let me just explain what this is. We have the hook, the hold, and the reward. Every movie that you like starts with a hook. A hook is a problem that the movie is about solving. It's about talking about the solution of. And at the end, the solution that's specified at the beginning is achieved. That's what the reward is. And the hold is attempts throughout the movie to find a solution. Now, this is what's important. At the start of the journey, remember I spoke about how life is about becoming, and to become something, you have to see it first. So you make a decision that this year I'm going to achieve this ideal body weight, or I want to become, maybe an engineer or whatever. So you're excited at the beginning when you make the decision. Or I want to achieve financial freedom, or I want to achieve this by the end of this year. Okay. And you're excited because you're seeing the possibilities. You're seeing what you already look like at the end of the process when you have achieved that goal. And you're very excited. But the reality is, the very first thing that happens is what? The journey begins to cost you. You have to pay the price. Remember, to become the person you need to become, you need to let go of the person that you are. So your identity has to change. And this is part of the identity transformation process. So firstly, it's going to cost you in terms of money, in terms of time, and a whole host of other costs. And number three, you get to a point where you say, was this really the right thing for me to do? And you start like trying to rationalize, you know what? I don't have to be financially free. I don't have to achieve that body weight that I want. I mean, who cares about university? There are people who didn't go to university. You rationalize and rationalize because it's hard. Things have to get bad before they get better. And number four, and this unfortunately is what ends up happening. Some people, when they get to like the rock bottom, you don't know what rock bottom is until you turn the corner, obviously, that point of inflection. And it's this despair where you like, I'm giving up. Who needs to be financially free anyway? My parents survived without being financial. You start making yourself feel better. But two of the things that are critical in helping you when you experience that period of despair, it's a very clear reason why you wanted that in the first place. If you say, you know what, I know what it's like to be poor, and I don't want to be there again, or I want a better future for my children, and that can become so motivating that you're like, I am not going to give up. No matter what it requires, I'm going to do it. The second is having a support structure around you. And this is where mentors come in. This is where coaches come in, because they can help you to see things slightly differently. Number five, that's when you begin to say, I can do this. I can most definitely do this. I see the principles at play. Now I see this money management thing. I can do this. I mean, what's difficult about managing things properly, And then you begin to say, if so and so can do it, I believe I can do it. And number six is like, now you begin to believe, I've got this. I'm going to make this. I've got this. This is going to happen, There's no way this is going to beat me. And number seven is where you actually achieve the goal, and you're very excited about the whole thing. Remember, the journey of identity has 5 steps or 5 stages, right? Life is about what you are becoming. Whether it's a mother or the job that you're doing, you have to become the best version of yourself in alignment with what's required to achieve the goals there. Okay, let me explain. I think it's always easier to use the wedding and marriage because people tend to get it whole lot easier. This is what it means, okay? How you become something, whatever it is, right? The first step is the legal. It's essentially a decision. And remember that intentionality I spoke about earlier? Sometimes, though, to become an engineer, for example, it's not enough to just say, I want to become an engineer. You need to like go to engineering school, get accepted. There's some means tests you may have to go through. But if you want to lose weight, you see yourself as somebody who is that ideal weight, and it's a decision that you've made. So you legally that skinny person. And number two, what is the perfect template of that person to become this great lawyer? What is a template of a great lawyer? What is a template of a great athlete? You have to understand, this is like basically desk research. You talk to people who've done it. How do I become the best husband that I can be? And number three is that perfect template. You've got to make sure that it becomes part of your belief system. To become this great doctor, you have to know what makes a doctor a great doctor. And you have to take that and make it part of your mindset and part of your belief system. Really, life is about what happens. Number four, you have to live it practically. You have to be great with your patients. You have to do your research. You have to do everything the way it's supposed to be done. Okay, so it's about that perfect template, you making it part of your mindset, and then living it practically day to day. That's how you become. It's a process, and you mature at the end of the process. So we're talking about you being a great manager. We're talking about you being this great pilot of your financial aircraft, this great gardener of your financial garden, so to speak. So how are you going to do that? You have to go through these stages, and these stages happen as we discussed in the previous section. It's not always going to be smooth sailing. There are times when it'll feel like, is it really worth it? It'll be difficult. You'll have to make difficult choices. Will you join the challenges? Do you believe you deserve a good life? Do you want a good life? What exactly stands in your way? How prepared are you to fight your way through that? Are you up to the challenge of making sure you do the hard work to get what you want to get? The question really is, how badly do you want things to turn around? The problem is sometimes, and very often so, the issue is not that we don't know what we're supposed to do. We do, but we're just not ready to take the actions that are consistent with the things that we say we want. And that's why one of the three reasons, as I mentioned earlier, why people fail is because they don't want to succeed. You know what you're supposed to do, but why don't you do it? I mean, it's a rhetorical question, obviously, but when it comes to finances, there's so many things that we know we should do that we don't do, right? And the reason comes back to that identity issue, intentionality. How intentional are you about it? And you have to be in a position where you say, you know what? I want that badly enough, and I'm prepared to do what's required, because this is not just about me. It's about generation two, my children, and it's about generation three, my grandchildren. It's about setting up a legacy. It's about a dynasty. Now, I may not experience the benefits of that orchard of money trees, but I'm prepared to do the groundwork. Let us plant money trees. Now, let us get our children, as soon as they start earning income, to start planting money trees, because it's money trees ultimately that are going to help us to become financially free, where we'll be able to say, you know what, I can take time off and spend with my grandchildren, or with my wife or my husband, with my loved ones. We take a holiday. The other day I was at the Statue of Jesus in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, right? And that place was packed with people. And I remember, like, you go to Table Mountain in Cape Town or the Kruger National Park, the places are packed with people. And I used to ask myself that question. If these people are here, so many of them, when do they actually work? But I was missing the point, though. These people are here because they have money trees, And remember, the money trees, they work independently of them. So if I own money trees, I can go do whatever I do. The trees will continue to be trees and produce out. The question I want to leave you with is, which of the 5 challenges are you most keen on and why? Write your comments in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like, and don't forget to add those comments because they're helpful in helping us decide which topic to tackle next. See you in the next video. Bye bye.